Hey everyone, and welcome to a rainy day paint with me. I invite you to get out your own art supplies and create alongside me, or just get settled in, because I've tried my very best to make this video as cozy and chill vibes as possible. I have lots of kind of random thoughts that I would really like to share with you all, but that don't necessarily fit nicely into one neat video. So my vision for this one is to be kind of like we are sitting in a studio, creating together, and just kind of chatting about a bunch of things that are on my mind right now. So if that sounds like your kind of vibes, like something that you'd enjoy, then I welcome you to hang out with me for a little bit here. If you've been keeping up with my most recent videos, you'll know that I just not too long ago got a sketchbook, and it's actually my very first sketchbook. And I know it seems kind of crazy that this is my first one, but I just have never had a sketchbook practice before in my life. So I've been really intentional over the past few weeks about getting it out pretty much every day and painting in it a little bit, and I have loved it so much. Like, it has honestly changed so much about my art practice, and I definitely don't think that I would ever go back to the no sketchbook days again after this. My goal for the sketchbook is really to use it as a way to loosen up and stop overthinking things and stop being so strict about all of the artwork that I'm creating. So that's my vision. That's what I'm working on. So today I think I'm going to try to paint in a very limited palette. So here are the three colors I'm going to try. So I'm using my burnt sienna, and then permanent lemon, and cobalt blue, and then also my white. I've never used this palette before, but I saw somebody online, if I can figure out who it was, I'll put a little video here, but who was working with super limited palettes, and I thought it's a great exercise. And like, one of my missions as I'm like figuring out all of this art stuff is to get better at color theory and really understand it at a deeper level. So I think that working with limited palettes can be hopefully a really good way to do that. So we'll see. So today I'm going to be painting some random little thumbnail scenes from a trip that I took to Ireland in 2022. So it's been a couple of years now, but I have a camera roll full of just beautiful lush green photos that I have wanted to paint for the longest time. So I thought this would be a great excuse. And with this limited palette that I'm using, with the burnt sienna, permanent yellow, and cobalt blue, I found that it's a pretty kind of more natural leaning palette. And so I thought it'd be a great way to paint some of these outdoor scenes from my trip to Ireland. So for this very first painting here, I decided to paint a photo that I have from the Cliffs of Moher. So very iconic Irish scene. It was really amazing to go there and see these cliffs in person. It was so windy when we were there, but look at this video. I mean, these colors, the saturation of the blues and the greens, like that's just what it looked like. And those cliffs are so stark and just stunning to see in person. So I can't help but want to paint these. Many people before me have painted them, and many people after me will also paint them. And so I think it's only natural to want to try and capture some of the beauty of this place on paper. So as I said a little bit earlier, one of my big goals and my visions for this sketchbook and maintaining a regular sketchbook practice is to learn how to paint in a little bit more loose style than what I often do. My tendency is kind of to lean hard into the realism side of things, which means that I'm kind of obsessing over all of the details And I think that was totally fine in my early years of creating artwork. But now that I've been working this muscle for a little bit of time here, I really want to be more intentional about capturing kind of the essence of a subject or of a place and focusing more on capturing a feeling rather than every nook and cranny that I see with my eyes. And one of my recent new favorites on YouTube, her name is Christina Kent Art. She's an oil painter out of San Francisco, but in one of her videos she talked about loosening up your style because she paints with a really beautiful, loose, gestural style, but still pretty representative. And I'm so drawn to her style of painting. And she said one of her tips for learning how to paint in a looser way is to use a bigger brush than you need in a smaller area. So it's kind of forcing you to be a little bit clunky, and you don't really have the option of obsessing over every little detail because you truly can't even paint those little details with the size brush that you're using. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Like, it might not be totally obvious just from watching the video, but this flat brush that I'm using is relatively large compared to the size of this little thumbnail sketch that I'm doing here. And yeah, it really doesn't allow me to get too much into the nitty-gritty, and I stuck with this for at least this whole first painting. You'll see by the time I get to the second painting I got a little bit flexible with this rule, but I think this technique is really helpful for me to look at the big picture some more. And yeah, I really like the effect that this has. As I'm painting and like looking at my reference photo, I've really started to change the way that I process these images, I guess, or like the questions that I'm asking myself. So like, instead of staring at a blade of grass and being like, what direction is that blade of grass pointing, I'm really looking at bigger picture shapes and colors instead now. So like, sometimes I'll even squint my eyes a little bit so I can't see the details and be like, what is the general shape that this color blob is forming? And I definitely don't try to replicate that exactly in my painting, but I try to get things in, you know, generally the right place, try and match hues as much as I can, and yeah, it's been really fun. So here's another look at my reference video here, and I would love to know, you know, what do you think? How did I do with this one? Okay, so now we're moving on to my second little thumbnail here, and I want you to listen to this. This is so delightful. So that little video is what I'm painting here, and this is from probably my most favorite Airbnb that I've ever stayed in. So my friend and I stayed at this sheep farm it's kind of in the middle of the Ring of Kerry, if you're familiar with where that is. And it's really, this farm is really far away from a lot of, you know, civilization, but that's kind of why I loved it so much. There were sheep everywhere, just all over the place. And that video, what you heard, is like what it sounded like 24/7. It was delightful. I loved it so much. It made me so happy to be there and be around the sheep. And we were there kind of in lambing season, and so the owners literally just like walked around and had this little tiny baby, and he was looking for her mom, and I was like, what is happening? It was amazing. So if I can find the Airbnb info, I can certainly put it in the description. So if you're ever planning an Ireland trip, like 1,000,000 out of 10, I definitely recommend going to this place. I think about it all the time. I loved it so much. And so of course I had to paint it. You might have seen in that little video that some of the sheep, or most of the sheep, had some colored paint on them, and I learned that it's so that the farmers, the like neighboring farmers, can tell their sheep apart, you know, they can know whose are whose, because largely they're free range, like they just wander around the mountains. Like one day we hiked up to this lake in the mountains, and there's just sheep all over the place, and so I guess they're color coded is what I've learned. So another delightful fact from this trip. So you're about to see a quick little transition here because I had to pause my painting session. I started this in the morning and then here we go. We are back several hours later. It's the evening now. This was like 9 or 10 p.m. here, and that is because my partner Nick and I are apartment hunting. We're moving around, and so we had to go do an apartment tour. So that was fun, but anyone who has moved knows that it is a lot of work. So I'm bracing for that in the next couple of months here because, we have to pack up our current apartment and move it all into a new one. But I'm really hopeful that in this new place I can have kind of a dedicated little art corner, because as you'll have seen at the beginning of this video, and I know you can't really tell from these clips here, but I paint in my kitchen, at my kitchen table, and it works. It's totally doable, but I think in this new space, like overall the apartment is actually, I think, a little bit smaller than our current one, but the layout is such that I think I'll be able to pull it off to have my little art corner, and I'm so excited about that because I have this vision for like setting it up in a really cute way, in a way that I have all my stuff organized and easily accessible, and I don't have to like clean off my art stuff when it's time to eat dinner, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I really can't wait for that. So if any of you have like must-haves in your art studio space, like especially in terms of organization, if you've got some tips for like organizing, for example, I have like a gazillion loose pieces of watercolor paper, so would love any pro tips you have for organizing that, or just generally, paints and any other art supplies, I guess. So yeah, I can't wait. Alright, so this is the part in my painting that I alluded to earlier where I kind of was a little flexible with my big paintbrush policy here, and so I broke out my size 0 round brush to get some of the details on the sheep because I really wanted these to look like sheep, and I was worried I would kind of ruin it with the giant brush, and so I got out my little brush for this. And as you see, I have my phone out. This is some shaky footage here, but I realized that from far away you probably couldn't see a lot of the little details, so I wanted to show you like what this looks like. So again, I'm trying to maintain a looser, less realistic style, but still representative. So yeah, I am obsessed with these little sheep. They are so cute. I love the way that they turned out, and part of me is like, should I turn this into like a full-size painting? Should I just like go for it? Because it brought me so much joy to paint these sheep. So anyway, let me know what you think. Like, do you get the vision? Do you think that we should bring this one to full size? And also, like, I have a T-mail shop, if you didn't know this, and I sell art prints just kind of casually on the side. And I was thinking about adding to that shop, and so as I painted this, I was like, wouldn't this be so fun to have a little print of this little sheep scene? I love it so much. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. I know any cat owners out there who are also painters or artists understand this struggle that I'm going through right here. Hazel. But that is one of the unexpected benefits I've found of painting with acryl gouache, is that it dries super duper fast. And so when Hazel inevitably walks all over my painting, it's probably dry. Okay, so now we're switching over to my final thumbnail sketch, and here is the actual little cottage where we stayed on this sheep farm. So it was just so quaint and so beautiful, and it's actually for real been on my to paint list like ever since I stayed in it. So as I'm painting this one of the other things I kind of wanted to chat about was the fact that I know a lot of folks who are subscribed to my channel are really interested in surface pattern design, and they follow me because I talk about surface pattern design and my journey into this world of surface pattern design and figuring it out. And a lot of what I've been doing lately, you know, with painting in my sketchbook and stuff, is not really directly related to surface pattern design, and I totally recognize that, so I wanted to chat about that a little bit. And before I go too far down this rabbit hole, I want to say, if you don't know what surface pattern design is, well, I do have a whole video about it, and so I'll put a little link to that here. But basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the process of designing patterns that go on surfaces. So it's a really broad industry, and it can range from things like fabric design to wallpaper or gift wrap or stationery, and you'll hear often about repeating patterns, and that's what I talk about a lot too. But surface pattern design doesn't have to just be repeating patterns. You know, there's this whole industry of surface design that could be basically any artwork that goes on any surface. And one of the big art business goals that I set out to do this year was to complete my surface pattern design portfolio in the first quarter of 2024. So that would basically be by the end of March. And if you've been following along in my videos, and then also I've been talking about this in my newsletter as well, I have decided to not hold myself to that goal so strictly. And here's why. So hear me out. You'll hear a few people in the surface pattern design world, in this industry, talk about how you don't need to be an artist in order to have success in this industry. And I wholeheartedly believe that that's true. Like, I know that. And you don't have to be creating like Monet level paintings in order to have success in surface pattern design. 100%, that's totally true. But as I've continued to create patterns and to work on my surface pattern design portfolio, I began to realize that I really have found myself drawn to improving my art practice and improving my art skills. And so even though it's not a prerequisite to succeed in the field of surface pattern design, it turns out it is something that I personally am really interested in doing as well. And ultimately, you know, I've thought about this, and I do think that taking the time to hone my art skills and to figure out what kind of artwork I like to create and what kind of style really sits well with me, I think all of this will lead to a surface pattern design portfolio that I'm really proud of, and one that's really reflective of me and of who I am. So that's not to say that I'm going to be creating repeating patterns, for example, that look like these paintings that I'm doing here, right? There are going to be differences, of course. But I think that working on my art skills, you know, like I talked about with color theory and learning how to loosen my style, and all of this is going to lead me to create patterns that I like better. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, but it's really important to me that my portfolio is filled with patterns that I'm really proud of and that I would really like to create more of, like in that style. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to be really intentional about this and make sure that this is not just like me procrastinating on goals that I actually want to be moving the needle forward on, but instead I am intentionally choosing to spend some of my time and my effort on this focus towards improving my art skills. So yeah, all that to say, don't worry, I'm still going to be talking lots about surface pattern design, and I'm going to bring you along with me, of course, for my whole journey. I'm just being really intentional about not taking the fast shortcut route and really taking my time with this whole process. So here are my final little thumbnail sketches here. I am super happy with how these turned out. They were such a joy to paint, and I think I'm getting better at achieving my vision of loosening up my style a little bit while still being relatively representational. So like I said earlier, I'm considering taking one or more of these to full scale, you know, rather than just this little thumbnail sketch. So I would love to hear from you. Which one of these is your favorite, and which one would you like to see in a larger scale? Okay, so here's what they look like in the daylight with all their bright, saturated, lovely colors in all their glory and no longer lit by the fluorescent light of my kitchen. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed joining me for this little paint session. If you would like to support me and my work, a totally free way that you can do this would just be to give this video a like and to leave me a little comment. It really actually, for real, does help. So I really appreciate you for being here and for watching, and stay tuned. There is plenty more where this came from. So I will see you very soon for the next one. Take care, everyone.